Call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. All council members are present. Move into our agenda this evening. You had an amended agenda that was presented to you this evening. Two things have been added. Actually, several things have been added. Action item 7F, plan amendments, 2013 stormwater project. 8A, capital improvement project update. And then 9 has 2 items. Cancel July council meeting discussion and hazardous and nuisance house discussion. With that, is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Warren. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Moving on then through our agenda, we have the minutes of the May 15th regular meeting. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Warren. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any discussion? Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. At this time is our public open forum. Does anybody here wish to address the council? Again, this is the time to, if you have any questions for the council or you have any comments for the council, this would be the time you'd want to talk to us. Anybody wish to address the council? Please stand to the mic and state your name and address.
Ron Schneider, good evening. This is my wife Jody. And we're at 725 Sinclair Lewis Avenue. We'd like to open up an antique shop there. Initially, we were asking for ordinance change, and further thinking about it, there should be other options other than changing the zoning on that. Other options for allowing us keep it a R1 zone and be able to open an antique shop. I went around and I got petitions, I talked to people, and I got 12 of them and lickety split, and we pass them out?
Yep.
Okay, pass them out. And this petition is, the neighbors are okay with me having an antique shop in there.
Okay. Okay.
And if I may continue, and with traffic, some people were concerned with traffic. Have you ever been in an antique shop? There's 1 or 2 people usually that are usually there, and it's just a couple cars. They can go on Maple, they can go on Sinclair Lewis, so they can park in the driveway. And if people are concerned with at the antique shop, stuff all over the yard, different displaying antiques, there will be nothing outside. Is all we'd like outside is a small sign, and we'd like it to put, that used to be an old hospital, Long's Hospital, and we're not changing in any way. That's a historic house. We're not even changing a nail in it. We're just having an antique shop, and it was the Long Hospital. We like to commemorate it to the Long's Antique Shop. And we won't be open on Sundays because there's a church across from us, so we don't want to interfere with their traffic, and we're willing to work with most options on and making this happen. And we do have, there is an option here, one of them anyways, is to seek an amendment to the text of the zoning ordinance, allowing us to keep it at R1 zoning, but still be allowed to have an antique shop. May we hand these out?
Sure. Go ahead and continue.
And just basically, I'd appreciate if this can be approved this evening. You can't please all the neighbors, but I barely tried, and I got 12 neighbors just instantly that were okay with this. My wife would like to read something if she could, please.
Now, we wouldn't be asking you to open up the property to other uses allowed, such as your offices, your restaurants, or any retail operation. The only thing that we want to have is an antique shop. Because of the historic value, I think people would like this, tourism could be brought into the city also, being it would be a place that, you know, it's been history in the making, and why not see this beautiful home already in progress.
And if you've ever been to an antique shop and, or if you go to an antique shop and there's only one in a city, I wouldn't be inclined to go to it so much, because there's only one. If you got 2 or 3, I'm inclined to go to them. And with that in mind, you just don't go there. Then you end up shoe shopping and clothes shopping, and you do many things, and it can bring money into the city. I think it's a win-win situation.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? We actually have this as an action item this evening, and if there's clarification that this council needs during the time of our deliberation, we may ask you questions at that point. You won't have just an opinion, but it'll be a direct question that you could answer in regards to this discussion. So at this time is your chance to speak openly. At that point, we'll be directing questions, if we have any, directly to you if necessary. That's
Okay.
kind of the process. So, okay? Thank you. Anybody else wish to address the council? Anybody else wish to address the council? Mike?
My name's Mike Hession, one of the neighbors, their house over there. I don't know what names they got, but I just talked to a few people last night, and within a half an hour, and nobody even knew what was going on. And they're trying to figure out, they all said, I thought that was blocked already. The sewer turning this place into a store up here. The neighbors that I talked to, and there's a bunch of them right here too, are totally against us here. We don't want any more. We're encroached already with North Star and all the business out that way, and then downtown's right here. You know, we only got a couple blocks there without any stores around us. We got the church up the street. We have a lot of young kids in our neighborhood now, and the extra traffic and all that stuff, we are definitely totally against it. And if you want me to get signatures, I'll get signatures. Like I said, there's some of these people that couldn't make it tonight, and they said, if you want me to sign, well, I said, I don't think we can sign anything tonight, but if you need some signatures on people against us here, I'll get forward to his signatures, guarantee you.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike? What's your address?
221 Maple.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Go ahead, just.
My name is Tim Austin, and I live directly across Sinclair Lewis Avenue from the residence in question at 231 Maple. And like Mike said, everybody that lives close that I know of to that residence is not for this, is against it. There's concerns about the traffic. Maybe the biggest concern is initially we thought that this would have to have some rezoning attached to it, which would open up the neighborhood feels a can of worms. And again, I'm not sure what signatures he's got, but everybody that I know of that lives close to that property is not for this.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Alice?
My name is Alice Caracas. I live at 206 Maple, one block north of the property you're discussing. I have a question. If that is to be rezoned for his wishes, would the home on the east, which is up for sale, would they consider buying that too? That's what concerns me. Plus, he does not have a record of keeping his properties good. I just had the opportunity to have to go to Little Falls today, and so I passed his home. And I would not want that repeated on this piece of property. Two, I really am concerned about if you change that zoning for that one house, what happens to the property 1 block south, which is that big empty property now? What happens to the home to the east that's for sale? And if they buy that, will they rezone that too? I think this is very serious to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Anybody else wish to address the council? Anybody else wish to address the council? Third time before I close the open forum. Okay, seeing none, we will close the open forum and we'll move on through our agenda. This topic will again come up in our action item 7A as we move forward. We are now in public hearings. We have none this evening. We'll move right into 6A, Park Board report. Vicki.
Okay, the Park Board met last night, which was the regular meeting of the month. They had several items on their agenda. They did receive a report on the reservations from the campground attendant with the heavy weekends filling up fast. They approved a refund of a deposit for a monthly camper for medical reasons. They approved a recommendation to amend the after Labor Day rates for the campground. They established a 3-day minimum to holiday weekends at the campground. They received an update from the Splash Pad Committee. They selected an internet provider for the campground. They discussed their 2013 project, and they discussed the City Council's commitments to park statement. And the recommendation on the fee schedule for after Labor Day and the 3-day minimum, those will actually come to the council meeting at the next council agenda for approval.
Okay, any
Anybody have any
questions?
questions?
Again, this was just a recent meeting.
This was last night,
Right.
yeah.
So there's not a lot in your packet in regards to it with it just being done last night. But thank you, Vicki. If there's no questions, we can move on to our action items. Our action item 7A, Resolution 2013-35, denying zoning map amendment and discussion.
In light of the comments that Mr. Schneider gave this evening, I'll still give the staff report, and then we can maybe reach into his other idea that he was suggesting there. But Ralph Daler is actually the owner of the property at 725 Sinclair Lewis Avenue. The property is currently zoned R1 residential, which is residential 1 and 2 family. Mr. Daler is represented by Ron Schneider and has requested to rezone the property to RC, residential commercial. Now, this was the initial application. Rezoning to RC would allow him to operate a retail establishment. The current proposal is to operate an antique store. However, rezoning would then allow any use currently allowed in the RC zoning district, and this was something that they had brought up. I did give you a copy of the zoning map along with the Planning Commission staff report and a draft of minutes of that meeting to give you some background of the public hearing. At the public hearing, the Planning Commission made a recommendation to deny the application based on the finding that the property in question does not meet the minimum lot width and area requirements for the proposed zoning district. Mr. Schneider has since contacted the city. He disagrees with the Planning Commission. He is requesting that the City Council approve the application. He had also wanted an additional opportunity to speak, and I believe he did that tonight in open forum. I had 2 approvals for you, for whichever one you would choose. The first was to approve the resolution denying the application for the zoning map amendment. This is the Planning Commission's recommendation. This would take a majority vote or 3 members because you're not changing anything. Now, if you were to approve the ordinance that is in your packet to change it to RC, that would take 4 votes of the 5 of you because you're changing it to a more intensive use. This is a newer law that some people aren't really aware of, but it does take 4 votes to amend the zone or to a commercial or a higher use. I'm intrigued by his presentation about seeking an amendment to the text of the zoning ordinance. This is something that we've had conversation internally about, but I haven't had the opportunity to talk to him about that, on how we could possibly allow some uses in residential that may be on highways or anything like that. even if we were to do something like that, that would have to go through a public hearing process. It would be an amendment to the zoning ordinance, so, because nothing that could be done tonight. It could be something that could be remanded to the Planning Commission for discussion, or it could be an application that Mr. Schneider could make to the city. There's a couple of different ways to handle that. But the action in front of you tonight is the proposal or the application or the recommendation that the city council or the Planning Commission gave to the city council. I don't know if anybody has any questions on either of how those work.
Vicki, I have some comments and questions, and then I'll open it up to the council here to also add their comments. I know some of you, Warren, you were on the planning and zoning, and I'm sure you'll have some thoughts. But one thing is obviously as you look at the map, the current zoning map, we're looking at proposing to change from a residential to a commercial zone. In the past, and I know we've all done this for a number of years, we have very reluctant to do spot zone, meaning we don't typically change a residential zone and one lot into a commercial, and in a commercial zone, we change one lot into a residential. That's just not, I don't think, good planning, and nor do I think it's warranted even in this case. I've had discussions with Ron, with Vicki, with others as well, and I do not support the fact of moving forward with changing the zoning of this particular parcel. However, I also understand that Sinclair Lewis Avenue is a community collector street. Basically what that means is it's a major street running through Sauk Center. And I think what you see along there's been a lot of development along Sinclair Lewis in the commercial nature in the past. And if you go east and west, you will see that. Whether or not we want the planning and zoning to look at potentially allowing interim uses in the residential area was something that I would think this council would want to really have a further and deeper dive into to see if it's warranted, first of all, and second of all, to see if there's really a need or a use for that in Sauk Center. But I do think, whether it's Ron or anybody else in the future, that main collector streets has continued to bring up questions in the past about people wanting to do some things along that major through street through Sauk Center. And I also support the fact that we have a lot of open buildings downtown. I'd certainly like to see those filled up rather than expanding the commercial. I'd like to see the downtown area get those stores. There's far too many open or far too many empty that we should be looking at filling rather than expanding our zone. So I think there's several things here. First of all, the action before us is whether or not to deny or to allow the rezoning. That's really the action we have tonight, nothing greater. If we want to expand upon it and ask the planning and zoning to reconsider and reevaluate if there's a need for an interim use option within the residential area, I think that will come with a different directive of this council. So I just wanted to kind of overview discussions that I've had the opportunity to visit with Vicki and others in regards to this, as well as some of the property owners in the area. So with that, I think, Warren, I'll certainly turn it over to you as the chairman of the planning and zoning.
The main reason the Planning Commission denied it is basically right on page 17 on the required minimums for an RC lot. Required minimum is lot area is 20,000 square feet. The existing lot is 12,672.
Yep.
It's not even close to being a required minimum for an RC, even if we could zone it that way. And spot zoning's the other thing that came up during the Planning Commission meeting, which basically, as far as I understand, is a violation of state law, or it's illegal to do unless your zoning is tied up to an existing zoning. If it's attached to something, then you can add on to it, but you can't just drop a spot in the middle of a city. To me, it's pretty self-explanatory. It doesn't require the minimums, plus it's never been this Planning Commission or Council's intention ever to do spot zoning. So,
All right. Any other comments?
Did you discuss parking issues?
yes, we had discussed parking issues. Basically, it's just the driveway. The discussion came up there was public street that could be parked on, but there are
Okay, but there are parking requirements.
There are parking
other than
requirements for
other than on
businesses,
street,
right.
so.
Based on occupancy and stuff like that. With this, I don't know how we would figure out, occupancy or business details
Yeah.
on that one. So that really didn't get into a huge detail, but basically you just have a double car driveway there. You could get 4 cars in it, but you'll be blocking someone in.
Yeah.
Plus,
And-
not only on, Sundays, yeah, there's church across the street, but that doesn't mean there isn't funerals or any other church doings going on where they're going to need that parking for the church too. So I respect his notice of the fact that, they're not going to be wouldn't be open on Sundays because of church, but there are other activities in the area that take up a lot of parking spots besides.
And Dave, you bring up a good point. Under the section 156.50, parking requirement indicates 5 parking spaces per 1,000
Per
square feet
1,000, so yeah.
of gross floor area. So, okay. Any other comments? No other comments? Hearing no other comments, I will open it up for an action. Mr. Connors?
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2013-35 denying the application for amendment to the zoning map.
We have
I'll
a
second that.
We have a motion by Warren and seconded by Dave. Is there any further discussion? No further discussion? Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Before we move on to our 7B, is there any desire of the council to have discussion at this point in regards to looking at the interim uses in the residential area for our collector street or for that designated area, or is that something that we want to have staff review and bring back with more information? Or is there no desire to consider that at this time?
It seems to me that the points about Sinclair Lewis Avenue being the collector and how we move forward really more has to do, in my mind, with strategic planning for the whole community. Because it's, how do we look at aspects of the residential and the commercial to really start to change anything with Sinclair Lewis without a community discussion, I think is really impactful to the people who have homes in that area. That's really changing drastically, and so I think at this point that's something that we really need to address in a strategic plan.
Okay. And just so you're aware, that would all require public hearing to go through that process, and there would definitely be input of the community and all the residents that would be impacted in those regards. But again, I'm not specifically looking at this as whether or not it's an antique shop, whether or not it's Ron or anybody else. I'm looking at what are the uses within the residential area as we continue to grow and this council continues to take these requests from time to time. I don't think there's anything wrong with having the planning and zoning dig deeper into those options just to see if we're on track where we're going to go. But as you state, Mike, maybe it's just the timing of when we move through that process is yet to be determined. So I'm good. So if we're not in a point at this time to move that into planning and zoning, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why it needs to go to planning and zoning unless, we get to that point. Basically, it may be a new way of looking at things, but personally, to me, it's just a loophole to get around planning and zoning laws that the city's got in place. And until we get it better in depth on this, I'm not interested in looking at it unless staff or the rest of you decide we need to.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that'd be my agreement. I don't want to get into every spot in the city wants to do something different and they all have to be reviewed. What's the point of having planning and zoning if you're just going to do lot by lot?
Yep. Fair. All right, let's move on. Thank you guys for your input. I appreciate it. Thank you, staff. Moving on, 7B, Resolution 2013-36, approving a minor subdivision. Vicki?
James Joust has requested the approval of a lot split to create a residential building site. The property is located on North Main Street. It's currently part of a larger parcel, which is Outlot C of Oak Ridge Heights. The minor subdivision, the actual address is 548 Main Street North. This is directly south of the Fairway Pines Assisted Living Facility. The action requested is the approval of a lot split to subdivide 100-foot by 276-foot parcel from the northwest corner of Outlot C. The lot will be consistent in depth with the adjoining parcel. The city subdivision ordinance allows for the administrative approval for recommendation to the council if the subdivision meets all ordinance criteria. You see the lot requirements by ordinance 156049 requires a 75-foot minimum width and a 10,500 square foot minimum area. This request is 100 square foot or 100-foot width and 27,600 square foot. So it far exceeds the minimum lot area requirements. The surrounding locale is all residential. Utilities are available in Main Street. There is a utility easement across the back corner of the lot. That is the service line from the homeschool property to Main Street, and you can see that on the certificate of survey. Because this meets all the minimum requirements, the recommendation is that the minor subdivision be approved. I did have a condition upon receipt of a certificate of survey, which I had since then received. I do have the larger certificate showing that easement and the big outlot C, and then the next certificate is the actual lot with all the dimensions and the criteria on it. And the following, the final documentation you have is Resolution 2013-36 approving the minor subdivision for James A. and Sherry L. Jouse.
All right, any questions of staff? Hearing none, it's a pretty straightforward request. So with that, I'll call for motion to approve Resolution 2013-36 approving the minor subdivision. Motion by Keith, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Moving on to C, approved memorandum of understanding. Vicki?
We do have a memorandum of understanding in your packet is with Teamsters Local 320. The purpose of the MOU is to create a shift employee category in the Public Works Department. The reason behind the creation of a shift employee is that this person could be scheduled to work in the arena on weekends as part of the regular work week. Right now, how the union contract is written, the Saturday and Sunday hours are always overtime regardless of how many other hours you work during the week. So if we had, what we're proposing is a shift employee that they could maybe work Wednesday through Monday or Thursday through Monday or whatever, and Saturday could be part of their regular work week, and then we wouldn't have to pay those extra overtime on the weekends. And we had discussed that with the Public Works Department, and they are in favor of this recommendation. In fact, their union representative already from the Teamsters already came up and signed it, and I said, well, we haven't even approved it yet. And so he's good to go with it. One of the reasons that, another issue that came up here is that we have part-time employees that are members of that same union, and then they only work Saturday or Sunday, and then they have overtime work. So it really has to do more with how we schedule so that we can get, the most bang for our buck, but yet be fair to the employees. The one thing that they are requesting, though, is that a regular workday is an 8-hour day, so I can't have somebody as a shift employee work 4 hours Saturday, 4 hours Sunday, 4 hours Monday, and work 7 days a week before they get their 40. They still want the 8-hour shift. So we would have to work around that, because on Saturdays, generally our arena shifts are at least 8 hours. On Sundays, they're typically less. And so on Sundays, we may have the shift employee work Saturday, and maybe Sunday we have a part-time that is not in the union work that one and get their seasonal wage. So there's ways we can work that in the scheduling. So this is, it really is kind of a collaborative effort with the union and the city to try to make the arena operate more efficiently and to be able to get an employee who is a shift employee so we can be more flexible with them. And there is a cost savings to the city as well of not paying those extra overtime hours on the weekend. Does anybody have any questions how that works?
Sounds good to me.
None? If there's no questions of staff, I think, Vicki, I know you've been working at this pretty hard, and it's with unions anytime, it's always a memorandum of understanding. Sometimes it's tough to get. So I think it's been a very good accomplishment to be able to get through this in such a timely manner. But with that, is there questions? Go ahead.
I just have one question now. Could that shift situation be applied to all workers, or is it just one worker that would be a shift worker?
We would have, there would be the one category of worker that would be a shift employee, and there would be one employee appointed as the shift employee.
And the others could?
The other ones are still regular employees. So they still work Monday through Friday. And this, of course, applies to when you're working arena.
So if that one employee is not available, it would still be an overtime situation?
Yes, if the other employee had to work that weekend, yes.
Thank you.
I have a question. So as far as what does it take to appoint somebody as a shift employee?
The city council.
Okay.
Any other questions? Very good questions. Is there a motion to approve a memorandum of understanding with Teamsters 320, creating a shift employee in the Public Works Union?
So moved.
Motion by Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Warren. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Thank you. We'll move on then to action item D, approve appointment to full-time shift employee. Vicki?
Yeah, this now, Mike, answers your question on how you become a shift employee. Andrew Rustling has been working as a part-time seasonal with the Public Works Department since December 21st of 2004. That's how long he's been working seasonally for the city. And on March 21st, 2012, he was appointed as a part-time year-round employee at 30 hours a week. So since 2004, he was seasonal. He came and worked in the arena, or he worked the outdoor rink, or he mowed grass, that type of thing. And then on March 21st of this last year, he went to a 30-hour-a-week employee. And now we're recommending that he become that shift employee that we just talked about and become a full-time employee. The one thing about his employment status is that he would advance to step 2 of the wage scale once he completes 2,080 hours back since March 21st of 2012, which he's actually hitting right now. So at 30 hours a week, it takes about a year and a quarter to take a step, and that's right where we're at right now. So it kind of fits in real well with our recommendation to appoint him to that shift employee. Won't have a big impact as far as weekend hours until we put ice in again this fall, because we typically would not have him work a shift on the weekend in the summertime. So our recommendation here, I do have the fiscal impact to the city, is $9,700 in base pay on an annual basis. And then, of course, this would be all departments, arena, parks, and public works. How our public works department works is they have a timesheet, and they actually allocate the hour to the department that they work. And so every year, that money could be split between 3 departments. And so our request is to appoint Andrew Rustling as a shift employee with the Sauk Center Public Works Department effective June 7th, which is tomorrow, 2013.
Questions?
Yeah, I've got a question in regards, you said 9,700. Does that also include benefits, or is he getting benefits now, or how does that go?
Yes, he does get benefits. Yeah, that's pay and benefits. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
all right, it's just not, okay.
His benefits are
Over and
based on
above
30
what
hours.
is currently spent.
Right. But now, remember, we're going to be saving some money by not paying overtime on the other side in the arena. So it kind of mitigates some of that.
Any other questions?
Okay. Well,
It's like-
I haven't heard any justification or request from the Public Works Department for an extra 10 hours of work a week. So I'm wondering where that came from.
It was the request of both the Public Works Streets and Parks foreman to bring him on full-time now. In the summertime, and before he was working more in the wintertime, we needed him on the arena. We really need the help in the summertime, trying to keep up with, if any of you have noticed, the lawn mowing, especially because of the rain, doing a lot of patching, doing a lot more repair work, preventive maintenance, deferred maintenance, those kinds of things they're really ramping up on. And they really felt that they could use the additional hand. So it came to us and to the Personnel Committee at the request of the foreman of the department.
Okay. I can't help but think how this fits into our agreement to help water plants as well. That, now we don't even have enough time to do the job that we were supposed to do, but we agreed to water plants too.
This was in the works before we talked about watering plants. But he's been doing that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they all have.
They've been rotating that duty.
Dave, this ain't about the water and plants, but I do understand the point that you're making. Very good. Is there any other comments, questions? No. None? Is there a motion to appoint Andrew Rustling as a shift employee at the Sauk Center Public Works Department effective June 7th, 2013?
So moved.
Motion by Warren, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Thank you. I do have to take my hats off to Andrew as being a part-time employee since 2004. That's over 8 years working part-time for the city before we now bring him on as a full-time status employee. That's pretty good. It's really impressive. Moving on, action item E, resolution 2013-37, authorizing sale of vehicles.
We're still rotating through this vehicle thing once we purchase a vehicle and one gets sold, et cetera. But now that we've purchased the 2012 Freightliner plow truck and the 2002 Ford 1-ton with the dump box, the vehicles they are replacing can now be put up for sale. In addition, we're requesting that the 1989 Chevy Cheyenne also be sold. And we talked about this a while ago at operations. It's that last truck, the one that people referred to as Butch's truck. And we're looking to take the proceeds from these sales and hopefully allocate those toward a replacement. That truck is kind of a runner truck. You run to the dog pound, you run to Tri-County Humane, you run and get parts. Kind of a smaller vehicle, doesn't need to be real big. It's just something that we can use. It's more economical. So we're asking to sell these 3 vehicles through the online bidding process through MinBid. We will put an advertisement in the local paper so people know to go on MinBid that we have them. It is a 1981 Ford F700. This is the chipper truck, and this was a truck we got from the PUC years ago. And so what the chipper truck will now be is the plow truck that we replaced with the new Freightliner. So we kind of moved them down. Then the 1984 F350 with dump body, that's the one that we replaced with this recent purchase of the 1-ton. And then, of course, we have the 89 Chevy Cheyenne, which we would like to replace with proceeds, but we would come back to the city council for that approval. I just didn't want you to assume that that's what we were going to do. So what we're requesting is to approve Resolution 2013-37, approving the sale of these excess vehicles.
Vicki, do you have any idea what the minimum bids on these vehicles are going to be?
We've been checking that right now. We've been
Okay.
looking at doing some K-bid and then also going down to the local dealers, and they kind of give us an idea of what we should put on for a minimum.
Okay,
I can't believe that it'll be real high
right.
because, you know, we're talking vehicles that are quite
22
older.
years old. Okay. Any other questions?
What plans are in the work for replacing the Chevy? Since we sell it, obviously the replacement suddenly becomes more of an issue.
Well, what I had asked them, they're going out there to see, to first define what their need is. You know, what are you going to use it for? I mean, they're actually watching what the police have in forfeiture vehicles, if one of them can be worked into. The ones that we've had before aren't really ones that we could purchase and utilize real well. So if you're saying, I'm not asking you to commit to buying one right now.
Well, I realize that, but on the other hand, kind of aren't you? When you sell the one that you're using, it's not there anymore.
No, it's not.
What's going to be the replacement when it's gone?
They've
We
actually
haven't made
been
a plan,
using
have
the
we?
Gator.
I was going to say,
They got the Gator.
The Gator? Okay. Well, if it's just a runner truck, that's probably fine.
And we put this on there because we have the other ones on there. If you want to take that one off for now until they have a more definite plan, we can do that. It was just
Well,
that
as
we had
long
these
as they
out
know
there.
what they're going to do in the interim, because it'll be gone, so.
And they've been using the other truck to run with. It's just that it doesn't, you know,
the new truck.
the new truck, it's just doesn't get as good a mileage and that type of thing.
Okay.
And once winter comes, they'll be using that for plowing.
Well, Mike just brought up a good point. I mean, are we just getting rid of them because they feel we want them to get rid of it? I mean, or don't they have a need for the vehicle?
I think they have a need for a vehicle. It's just that this one is getting very tired and getting very rusted out.
So is it
It's almost
costing us to maintain it, which is driving one of the reasons it's best to get rid of it while we continue to stick more into it? I mean, is that what I'm hearing?
Well, it's still drivable. I mean, it's more one of the nickel and dime ones. It hasn't cost us anything major, but it's like constantly has small things. And so they think they've got those repaired, but we don't know what's going to happen next.
All right, well,
And those types of things will be revealed in the sale.
we will assume they know what they're asking for, and we're going to get rid of 3 more trucks. So hopefully they don't come back next month asking to buy a new one.
Is Is there some rationale, some reason why we would want to put that for sale now when we don't know what we're replacing it with? Why the rush? That seems like, could we not be just putting this up for sale next month?
We could put it up for sale next month. I think when we had the operations committee and they reviewed all the vehicles that needed replacement, and this one was identified as one, I think they felt they were following that plan that we talked about.
I'm on that committee, so I agree with that. I just, a little concerned with we're going to sell it, and then we're going to figure out what we're going to use instead. And unless there's a reason that we want to get it out there now.
I think they kind of wanted to see what kind of money they were working with, because they wanted to replace vehicles with what we were getting from selling the old vehicles. So they kind of wanted to see what they would have to work with. But we certainly can pull that one off and have them become more definite in what they want to purchase.
They can drive the Gator.
Well, what is the wishes? I mean,
if they've got an idea of what they're going to do when it's gone, then I don't have a problem with it.
I think we're pretty clear that we are hoping that they have a plan, and obviously as their, administrator, you would have been talking with them,
And I
Vicki,
have been.
so I'm
and,
confident of that.
What I can say is they haven't picked out a vehicle, but their plan is to get something that is a smaller truck that's more economical that they can use as a runner truck. That's their
Okay, then they have a plan.
Okay.
Very good, thank you. With that, is there any more discussion? Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2013-37, approving the sale of the excess vehicles?
So moved.
Motion by Dave, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mike. Any further discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstentions? Motion carries, 5 in favor, none against. Moving on to F, Plan Amendments 2013 Stormwater Project. Vicki?
I just have a couple minor amendments to the stormwater project. I just kind of wanted to have the general consent and the knowledge of the council here. And we're kind of winding down that 2012 and 13 capital improvement project, and the city engineer is here to kind of go over more in detail where they're at with that. We just have a couple things that we wanted to discuss or get your consensus on. You may have noticed we had to remove 5 of those big Cobra head streetlights from the project, and we're looking to replace those with the residential style streetlight that city adopted a residential style some time ago. It's the fiberglass direct berry pole, and they'll be in slightly different locations simply because of where the infrastructure is underground. Actually, the Cobra head lights, then we would use them out of inventory for repairs to other lights, like when people hit them with their vehicles and we need a new light. That's one thing that we've done, so it's kind of a change of the Cobra head to the residential style. The second one is the sidewalk on Oak Street Circle on the east side. Back when we were at Plan Review, we discussed this, and I just wanted to point it out again. That street got narrowed up a little bit, so the sidewalk will now have a boulevard, which didn't have before. So rather than the sidewalk being tight against the curb in that area, there will be a boulevard. And then the third one is the sidewalk on 5th Street from Main to Oak. That would be from the library down to Oak Street Circle. Was a 10-foot wide sidewalk. We're going to narrow that to a regular 5-foot sidewalk with a 5-foot boulevard. And then we're looking at our recommendation to relocate that handicap stall, which is the first stall on 5th Street, around to Main Street, and to be in that last stall on Main Street. If any of you were here when we actually put that handicap stall in, the concern having it on Main Street was simply that there would always be a big vehicle parked there, and pulling out on 50 wouldn't be able to see. The reality is, in that handicap stall, there's not a lot of use, so we're having a better chance of it being open. And so pulling out from 5th onto Main, it'll actually give you more visibility than we currently have. So the recommendation was, while we're at it, let's move that handicap stall around the corner, because people tend to get out of their vehicle and go around the front of it to the ped ramp, versus here they got to go around the back of their vehicle to get to the ped ramp. So that's a little adjustment, but I didn't want to move that sign without the consent of the council as well. So some kind of minor tweaks and adjustments, but something we wanted the council to be aware of, and just kind of looking for your consent on that.
So, question though, if you're going to reduce the width of the sidewalk from 8 to 10 feet to 5 feet, are we reducing the cost of the?
Right, we're based on quantity,
Yep.
so we would have savings. We'd
Good.
have a little more restoration, less concrete. So yes, it would be reflected in a savings in the cost.
That sidewalk was only that wide mainly because it was going to the
school.
old school in the first place.
Correct.
Now it'll
Yep.
be comparable to the other residential
Right.
sidewalks.
All right.
Do you really want handicapped people getting out on Main Street though?
We have other stalls, we have other ones on there. And it hasn't been an issue, I guess. And that was the conversation that the council had at the time, was some concern about that. Like the one by the Palmer House is there, and there's one on the other side of the street, I think, as well. You know, when you look at that, if some people are thinking that that's the driver, and then some other people think it's the van where they're getting off on the sidewalk side. So it just depends.
But it was the point of discussion when we first set that up along onto Fifth Street, was to have it off of 71 due to the traffic.
It was traffic, but it was also the concern that there would be a
And the
big
safety.
van sitting there all the time blocking the view when people pulled out of Fifth, which we find that we don't see a van sitting in that stall very often.
Could we move it further to the west on that same side street?
You'd be that much further away from a handicap ramp or a ramp head to
Maybe
get up onto
walking
the
the
sidewalk. See, either stall, they go around to the corner to the ped ramp to get up onto the sidewalk.
Okay. Yep.
Okay?
I'm fine with all three.
Is there any other questions? General consent of the council that we move forward with those three recommendations?
I think so.
Okay, Vicki. General consent to move forward.
That way we can disagree later on.
Was?
Moving on to unfinished business, capital improvement project update. Keith?
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. You have a status report in front of you. I'll go through that somewhat briefly, hit a few of the new things that are on there. As you know, the Phase 1, all the utility work was done in 2012, all been tested and approved. We still have some riprap to put in yet at the discharge at the pond on the east end, but we're waiting for Mother Nature to stop raining so we can get down in there. It looks like we might have a few drying days coming up, so maybe we can get down there in the next week here and get that taken care of. There was that one sidewalk repair on the first block on the north side of the other side of Main, and that is scheduled actually for tomorrow to come in and repair that. There's a couple of Chelsea and Sam, I think, are the names that are in there, and we'll be trying to get rid of those. Either we're going to first try to buff them out. If that doesn't work, then we'll replace the panel for there. In that same area, last time we talked about that vault, and the council was going to see if they could get by and just give their input as to if you want us to go back to the CenturyLink, I believe it is, to have them redo that, or if you're fine with the way it is, or what. So I'm looking for some input from you on that. We can get to that maybe afterwards, and you can give me that input. Final restoration is basically complete with the exception of one house at 4th and Birch, the northeast corner, trying to get a stump grinder in there to take some of those roots out of there before we can do that final restoration. We're having some problems with the contractor getting someone to come in and do that, but hopefully we can take care of that in the next week. Let's see, moving kind of to the west side, there's some touch up at the Watershed District. They redid some of their steps going in, and there are some settlements after it was seeded. So we'll probably go maybe touch that. Technically, it's their settlements from the things, but I think it's probably easiest just to take care of it and get it finished with the rest of the project. There's a parking stall actually back on the east side, that first block right next to the alley to the north, and that is all ready to be repaired. It's actually already been saw cut. They'll come in and pull that pavement out and patch that in and make that a nice repair in there. That was always the plan. They just hadn't gotten to it yet. So that's scheduled to be done, hopefully tomorrow perhaps. Wear course paving, as you've seen, has been completed. There's just a few loads left on the parking lot that needs to finish up the parking lot, and then that whole area will be done. And as you know, the contract completion date is not till the middle of July, but we'll be quite a ways ahead of that. Phase 2, all of the utility work is now, all the municipal utility work is complete. It's tested and approved and ready to go. All went quite well on that overall. CenturyLink is still constructing their second vault down in that end and some conduit. They've had only really minor delays to the overall project at this point, but nothing significant. They've got about a week's worth of work left to finish their stuff and get out of there. I know there's been some questions. CenterPoint, they actually did some work beyond the project limits, taking out some sidewalk and things, and they'll be replacing that. I don't have their schedule on that, but that is something that they have to do to replace that. So I know there's been some questions on that. Let's see, we're scheduled to start curb and gutter actually on Thursday or Friday of this week. They'll start on that north side of Phase 2, so 5th and Oak and the Grove Lake area, and probably about to the south edge of that island. That's about as far as they'll get these first handful of days. We expect in about 2 weeks, all of the curb through the entire second phase will be complete, and then we'll start working on getting ready for that first lift of asphalt. We expect that first lift to be done still in that first week of July. Restoration and seeding will follow that. As we talked before, seeding depends on the temperatures. We may have to do a temporary seed and then come back in the middle of September to do the final seeding through there. Really no major changes occurred at all in Phase 2. There's a couple of minor things I noted in there. There was a sanitary sewer pipe at 8th and Getty that going to the east that was unknown that we found, and that had to be replaced about 45 feet at 8-inch through there. And as we mentioned, up just south of the Wobegon Trail to the west side, we added that storm sewer stub. There's about 38 feet of pipe and a catch basin below, and we discussed that at the last meeting. We talked about some of the street lights just previous to this, what's going to be done through there. And just a note of when that completion date is actually for October 21st, 25th, but we'll be well ahead of that, with the exception if we do that final seeding. If we have to do that in September, that would be that last couple weeks in September to get that taken care of. And the final work course isn't until middle of next June. So that's kind of where we're at overall, and I'll entertain any questions you have and also input as it relates to that vault.
Just a couple thoughts, Keith. I know you mentioned, just for clarification, that the final wear course is not scheduled until June 13th next year. So just for clarification, yep. For people that are wondering, well, what, is it going to end up like the east side of 4th Street from 71 going east? No, that'll happen actually next year when they do the final.
Next year. We like to set it through a whole freeze-thaw cycle, so if any settlements occur, we take care of that before we put the final lift on.
Correct. Okay. And then, again, I guess I did have a chance to go down and look at the vault again, and I know you and I have talked about it, and I think there's definitely some improvements that can be done, but I'm open if the council feels they're comfortable with it as is. If they had a chance to look at it, I will go with whatever the majority of the council feels. But I know in my experience in working with vaults and how they settle and how things move throughout the course of, usually it's within the first 6 to 9 months that you see settle, especially the first winter. Yep. Next spring, you'll definitely see it. If it settles throughout the course of this winter, based on the changes that have been made, would it be able to be replaced yet next year because it's still in construction?
Yeah, right. We'd have to just have them pull out, and this would be something they would have to do. This would not be a city cost. We would direct them that you've got to raise that, so they would have to pull out. I think it's probably 2 panels of sidewalk there and raise the thing and then re-pour those sidewalks through there. So, I'm kind of ambivalent to it. I mean, if you want to have it taken care of and push it for this year, I'm more than happy to go to them and have that taken care of. So, whatever you wish to do as a council, I'm more than happy to do.
And then the other question that I have in regards to the parking lot and to the corner apartment building, I know I visited with staff on this, and I've talked with the business owner, apartment owner, quite some time. There is some additional work that needs to be done there in that parking lot. It has to be cut square. I mean, your plant, your person is working closely with them, right?
It's already actually cut square out there. That's already done as we speak, actually, at this point.
Okay.
It just hasn't been removed, but it's
call on Monday, excuse me. It was just done yesterday?
It was just, it
Or
might have even
today?
been today.
Okay, so I was just called in the last couple days.
Yeah, I think it's today, so it is Sauk. I looked at it on this evening, so it's all done. They haven't pulled, because we'll just pull it and then pave right over it again, so.
Okay.
It's been cut.
All right. Anybody else have any other questions?
On that vault, what's your main concern, that it's gonna settle more and cause more of a lip than what's right there now?
Exactly. It's going to settle more. And what I envision it to be is it's going to settle more. There's going to be standing water that's going to freeze there in the spring and in the fall. And as you know, it's in the decline down to the alley, and it's also, it's in a bad spot. Truly it is. It should have been moved probably to the west 8 feet, so it was not in the slant, or the slope, that's the grade that's going down to the alley. And I think that's something we could have probably requested be done at the time. Maybe it's something we can still request. I believe with it in the grade and the slope, we're forever going to have an issue with that vault the way it sits there like that. Whether or not they will, every vault, many vaults, I won't say many vaults have 25 to 50 feet of cable coiled up in them for splicing reasons and for many different reasons. Now, obviously, I haven't looked in that vault to know specifically what's in there. It's not, it's, I believe, Century's vault.
It's Century Lake, yeah.
And if they could move that out of the grade and into the flat section, would be further ahead for all of us. And that would be my request if they'll do that. I just think we're into putting ourselves at great risk with the way it's in there based on where it's at. That's just my thoughts.
Well, basically, looking at it right now, yeah, there is a lip there, but I don't know, it's gone through one freeze-thaw cycle already, so I don't know how much more it would settle. And my concern is we've got sidewalks all over town that probably got bigger lips than what that does. So the only other concern is if we did have to raise it, how much of a problem is it to get them guys back in a year or 2 years to get it done? Is it going to be a fight to get them back here?
You can be assured that if you don't get it fixed when the construction's going on, to get them to come back, there will be 100 different reasons why it is the way it is, and not just because of the way it was set.
Okay.
So
It will
it's
generally it's more difficult later, when they're still in town, at least. They have one crew in town. I don't know if this would be the same people that may raise it or not, but they do have some people still in town, so they're at least actively engaged in the community at the moment.
And I don't know if raising it there's really raising it's not an option, because you have it sloping this way and back. So you got it both directions of slope in there.
Yeah.
So it's so unique as to how it's sitting there. It's triply, it's
I think
simply
it'd
in
have
a bad
to be,
spot.
it'd have to be probably twisted in there, so, it's set, so it's kind of meant to be flat, if you will.
Yeah.
An angle, but flat as it relates to the road. And it would have to be tipped. It could be raised a little bit, but it'd have to be tipped and raised, or ideally, it should go 8 feet to the west.
That's right.
That would be the best solution. Second best solution would be to move it in its current location and bring it up and tip it, and it would be better than what it is now, for sure.
Sounds like we should move it.
Well, it sounds like, yeah,
I think we should
have
request them to move it.
request them to move it and do it now, and then they'll still be here probably next year, because it's going to go through a freeze-thaw and
Could happen.
settle, and it could be down 2 inches next spring.
It could happen.
And it's
And then
within
we'll do it
our,
again, so.
with the right-of-way ordinance, it's within our bailiwick to tell them.
Okay.
And
as long as
it
there's-
doesn't just matter to this, it applies to anyone that's within our community that is causing some concern for us and our residents and pedestrians. We have the right to do that.
As long as it isn't going to cost us anything.
Let's do it.
Nope.
Yeah,
No.
fix it.
I think it should be fixed.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, Sam and Chelsea is actually right in the same area, so you get a
They might be
double-
fixing Sam and
Yeah.
Chelsea at the same time.
Sort of a 2 for 1 by fixing that.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any
Is
other
there any
questions?
questions, any other questions in regards to the project? I think they're doing a great job. They spent a lot of time over by Getty and I believe it's 9th Street, right at the corner down there. It's been some big hole for a long time.
And 8th and Getty there?
Getty.
Yeah,
and-
yeah.
and-
There's a lot of stuff going in that corner, and if you may recall, when we discussed this project is we've got a lot of catch basins in that southwest corner. And the reason for that is when we get to doing street reconstructs, either going up the hill or either direction, to the south or to the west, we need to extend storm sewer up those areas. But because we're not doing that now, we've got the capacity there, but I want to catch that water before it goes down the hill and ends up flooding at the viaduct. So, we've got more than we ultimately someday we'll probably get rid of a few of those, and as we extend things to the south and to the west.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to new business, 9A.
Last year in July 4th fell on a Wednesday, and so we did not have a city council meeting on the 4th of July, and we just had the regular one meeting, and it worked out very well. This year, the council meeting falls on July 3rd. Several people have plans for that day, and so I'm asking the city council if they would consider canceling July 3rd council meeting, and then just having the one in June, and then the next one in June, and then only one in July. And then if something really important comes up that needs immediate action, we can always call a special meeting. But I wanted to bring that before the council.
Council okay with that?
That's good to be.
All right, general consent, we will move forward with one July meeting, and we'll cancel the July 3rd council meeting. Okay, moving on, Vicki, B.
We had an item that we introduced, and this is something we've been talking with the city attorney about, and we wanted to bring it before the council. We've been working toward, cleaning up homes that have been neglected, some as far as the structure itself, others as far as the property and the upkeep of the property. What we're talking about here is homes about the structure itself. We've identified several homes that they need corrective action. They may be vacant, have broken windows, they appear to be hazardous, they may have holes in them, the doors are missing, things like that. So we're talking about vacant, hazardous homes. So we met with Tom Mayer, the city's attorney, and he's advised us of the process involved to take enforcement, kind of take it to the next level, the Hazardous and Substandard Building Act, which is a Minnesota statute. And he's going to come before the city council, and he would present to you what the process would be and a timeline, how long it would take to do this, and approximate budget. So the city council can make a determination whether they want to pursue this. At that time, of course, there's steps, resolutions, different things you'd have to take to get moving on that. In the meantime, or in the interim, that we should consider immediate action to secure any of the buildings that appear to be hazardous, which are these homes with these open holes and windows. And so we're asking that the council direct the chief of police to inspect each property and then advise the city council if these conditions exist. And any of the houses that appear to be secured that maybe could be open for vandals or children or anything like that, the council could then pass a resolution ordering notice be given to the owner to correct it within 10 days, or then we can correct it, which may be plywood over the doors, it may be something to secure the property. So we've got two things going. Number one, we're going to take it to the next level on enforcement, and the city attorney will come in and address and provide that process to you. But in the interim, we're asking to ask the chief of police to go and inspect these properties and to see if there truly is these conditions existing, at which time the council can order those to be corrected, or we can do it ourselves. We have identified several homes. I've given you the addresses in here. I certainly can read them for you if you want. And then I'm asking for kind of the general consent that we continue working with the city attorney, that he come back and make the proposal, and also that we direct the chief of police to inspect those homes for hazardous conditions.
Any questions of staff? I would just like to add, this has been something that I know all of us from time to time has either taken a call or been addressed somewhere about a concern that either a neighbor or a community or potentially even a property values assessors, everybody from time to time has asked us about what do we intend to do with these vacant homes as they continue to deteriorate, impacting values. And the city for a long time has looked at we've had many different letters sent to many of these addresses and others in regards to this is, at some point, it's our responsibility to move this forward and really take an action and say, you know what, we have to do something about this. We can't let these properties continue to dilapidate. Roofs are beginning to fall in, windows are busted, doors aren't, aren't even on some of them. It's just, it's dire time for us to do something, and I think the community, the neighbors, and everybody in general will benefit. This is not a process that'll be a slow period. This is going to take some time to move this through, but I think it's definitely, we're just looking for, one is to inform the council that it's time we got to start to act, and not necessarily act, but at least move the process forward so that we know that our city attorney is working with us to begin a process of moving this forward. And as you can see, the homes there have been, addresses have been identified that we need the police chief to inspect to make sure that we've got more serious problem than we have.
You know, I understand that home building right now is not necessarily, is low, but one of the things I'm wondering about, and I see a few open lots around, is what we can do to encourage people to build. Instead of subdivide, divisions going out and people expanding, and at some point, or to think about how do we fill in within the city some of the open lots that are about, and as we take action to create more of those, thought comes to my mind, well, it would be nice to see some building in some of the older neighborhoods, and to try to, I don't know what we can do, but I would hope we would give some thought to that.
And I think one of the things I know staff has had a chance, and I visited just today actually with Sarah and Vicki, and one of the things we're talking about is we have a lot of minimum requirements, and some of the older part of town, it's hard today to meet the requirements that our current ordinance states as far as lot size and setbacks. And I think when we get into those predicaments, we have to be flexible and be able to work with these, whether it's the builder or the property owner, to make sure we can work with them to build a lot, because them just being empty isn't of where we want to go either, right? And I think we all agree. So that is something that I know planning and zoning, and I know Sarah had certainly brought that to our attention as well, is that, we want to make sure, as we get more and more parcels where, these get addressed and others come up where they just are bare lots, we really want to see those built on. And I know the planning and zoning is looking at how do we help work with these folks.
Is planning and zoning is looking at this?
Yeah. Yes.
And is there some idea about when something might be ready for us to look at?
As of right now, no. It's basically right now, if anyone wants to do anything in the old part of town with a non-conforming lot, we work with them on the variance.
Well, maybe that is something that we should maybe be more proactive, is to say, here's the package for those, what we're willing to do in the older parts of town. So somebody may not even be considering it, but if they look at it and see some things are already laid out, I mean, what are we willing to do? And maybe that's something we really I'd love to see come out of planning and zoning, is an initiative to fill in the lots that are out there. I've got a few around my house that there's no activity on. I don't, I mean, if you were faced with having to jump through a lot of hoops to build there, as opposed to buy a few acres outside of town or maybe a lot, it's a lot easier. But we kind of gut the inside of our community like that. So I would like to see something from planning and zoning.
And most of those lots are ones that we end up mowing as a city anyway, so.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Thank you. Is there any questions of staff in regards to the action that's requesting to, I believe we can take action, or if it's general consent of the council, to the city to proceed in working with the city attorney as outlined and direct the chief of police to inspect and identify homes for hazardous conditions?
Yep, that's
general
fine.
consent? Everybody concurs it's general consent of the council. We move this forward.
Okay.
Okay. All right, moving on then to our consent agenda. This evening, we have our schedule of claims for unpaid claims of $168,715.85 and paid claims of $1,392.37 for a total of $170,108.22. We also have a resolution 2013-38 accepting contributions. We have a contribution from the men's card playing group for $211.08 to be used at Senior Center. I want to thank them once again for their contribution. We also have a request from Melanie Marion at M&M Corner Bar for a temporary extension of the premise permit for a dance in the parking lot on June 29th. And we have A request from the downtown bars for a temporary extension of premise permit and road closure for a Sinclair Lewis Day street dance on July 20th, 2013. The road closure request is a one-block area from Main Street stoplights to Oak Street. The bars plan to close the road at 5 p.m. for setup and reopen at 2 a.m. following cleanup. The fenced area will be from the east side of the red carpet across to Main Street Drug at the intersection of Oak Street. The street dance and road closure permit application will be sent to Jody Tech at the county after council approval. Any other consent agenda items, staff? I think that's it. So with that, is there any questions in regards to the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Second.
Motion by Keith and seconded by Mike. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. We have no informational items this evening, so with that, this council meeting has come to an end. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dave. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.